To give you an idea of how engaged people were in that process, the banks, the buy-side firms, the platforms, the brokers, there were, over that period of work, 15,000 comments on the Excel spreadsheet. So this piece of work hasn't been cobbled together by a bunch of central bankers sitting in Basel. This has gone truly, truly global, and we've now seen its arrival. Absolutely, and I'm going to come to you first, Christoph, absolutely with perfect timing for Hive. Last week in Europe, 15 banks plus the European Central Bank signed the statement of commitment, which we will all have to do by the end of May next year.
And you spoke just in your summary there about people being really engaged in the Global Code of Conduct as opposed to sort of more interested last year. Why do you think that has been, and why is there that shift?
There are two fundamental reasons. One is some of them feel they have to do it, which is not what we wanted out of the Global Code of Conduct. Others have followed the progress very closely, and particularly on the buy side, they feel that they are behind the sell side on this. And therefore what they've done is they've familiarised themselves with what the code says, how to implement the code, and they've warmed to it during that period, and I think that's one reason. The other key issue is around who's going to do it. What are my peers going to do? We know the banks have to do it, or most of the platforms and the intermediaries have to do it. Where do I stand and where am I positioned in this? And I think now it's clear from today that people have worked out that they need to be engaged. Success for the Global Code of Conduct I would divide into satisfying two fundamental audiences, not necessarily objectives, but audiences. One is the global wholesale market audience, which wants to see a cure, the reformation of the hygiene that Meredith talked about, that we so tragically lost somehow in the last decade or so. And the Global Code is first of all directed at a wholesale market audience. But I think much more importantly than that, the second audience is the man in the street. As a whole, financial institutions have lost their reputation, and they did that 10 years ago, and we haven't satisfactorily regained that. And I think that is the key test. One day we'll wake up and somebody says something nice about financial institutions. Then I think to myself, it's working. We're not there yet. We've gone through the end of the beginning, we're going into a second phase, and after the signatures on the statements of the commitment, we'll be in the third phase.
As a central bank, we're actively involved in the Global Foreign Exchange Committee, which, as you know, is a group of foreign exchange committees from many regions. Within our region, within Scandinavia, we're reaching out and having dialogue with buy-side participants. We obviously also have a dialogue with our major sell-side actors as well. But in terms of talking to associations or talking to individual corporate treasuries, we're trying to build up awareness through outreach, through interaction in events such as this, and through sort of bilateral contact as well. Another way in which the Riksbank and many other central banks is trying to sort of lead by example is by signing this statement of commitment sort of early on in the phase, and trying to maintain attention and momentum about how important it is to demonstrate your commitment to the code. And we hope that that attracts the attention not only of our counterparties, but also of their clients. Registers will be a very valuable tool for institutions to be able to demonstrate to one another that they publicly adhere to and support the code. There will be registers developed for particular niche groups of institutions. I hope that at some point in the future we may be even able to develop a global index which is searchable across these many different registers. But that's that's sometime in the future, I think. I think in terms of incentivizing the buy side is really going to, I think, experience the benefits of the code through their daily interaction with their dealers and with their banks. I think by asking questions and sort of demanding and expecting a transparency and dialogue about interaction, they'll begin to notice small changes. We heard some of that being mentioned this morning. There will also be some very public demonstrations of commitment by signing the statement of commitment. But I think it is in more of the daily interaction that we'll begin to feel the benefits and hopefully attract more to adhere to the code.